Good morning, church. It is good to be with you again on this Thursday morning for our daily devotional. My name is Scott Beard. I'm the lead pastor here at First United Methodist Church in Kirksville, and I have the privilege of being with you once a week in this way, and on Sunday mornings, of course, in worship. And I'm just so excited that you're here. We have actually as we would call a studio audience today. We have our United Women of Faith group that is having their meeting right after this devotional, and they decided to join us for this time of devotion. And I'm just so happy to have you here with us today, and I hope you enjoy this time together. Do you know, it was about not quite 4 years ago in March that I had the opportunity to go with a mission group from both parishioners and college students to Puerto Rico. And we were there to help with the hurricane recovery. And we divided up into 3 teams, and we went and worked on at least 3 different houses, and there were a few others helping restoring their homes and spending time with the people of Puerto Rico. And I had never been to Puerto Rico before, and it's an interesting place to go because you're very much part of the United States, and you're very much not part of the United States. It's if you ask a Puerto Rican if they're American or if they're Puerto Rican, it depends on the context, because they'll tell you one time they're Puerto Rican, and the next time they'll tell you they're American. But it's an interesting because they are Americans, right? They're part of our country, and a very essential part of our country, and one that they live in a totally different culture, though. Their culture is so much different than ours, and while we were there, we stayed in a dormitory that was was a United Methodist women's camp, I believe. And a couple of interesting things about that. One is we had rice and beans at every meal. No, without fail, we had rice and beans. And you grew really to love rice and beans because that was what you got, and it was delicious, and they knew how to make it really well. And one of the other things which sticks out in my mind that we wouldn't tolerate in the United States is that there was absolutely no hot water in the whole place. There was no water heaters. Water was only cold, and that was the only option you had. And so if you want to take a shower, you had to take a cold shower. And so we did, and it was hot there, so we didn't mind that too much. But every night that we were there, it seemed like it was every night, may have been only a couple of nights, but there was some sort of a festival going on that we never quite understood what it was. But we would be trying to go to sleep, 10 or 11 o'clock at night, and we'd hear this distant music playing, these thumping of drums and bass guitar, and it just kept getting closer and closer and closer. And finally, what would happen is there'd be this whole parade of mostly pickup trucks with huge speakers in the back of them, cranking music as loud as they could, driving down the road, having a great celebration, and many others on horseback riding. And it was just like a huge party, and I don't even know what they were celebrating, but they were certainly getting into it and enjoying the evening and the music that they had. And you could say, well, they're keeping me awake, but it was just glorious sound to hear people enjoying life the way they did. And one of the other things we did is we went to church with them on Sunday morning. I don't know if it was United Methodist or a Methodist church, but it was a Methodist church of some description in the town near where we were. And when we got there, the place was packed. And, of course, everything's in Spanish, and I speak no Spanish whatsoever. And so I couldn't understand what they were saying. But one of the things that really struck me is how worship transcends language. And even though we didn't know what the words they were saying, we could tell from their expressions and their enthusiasm, and occasionally a word that we would recognize. And we knew that they were praising God, and they were worshiping in a very exuberant way. And they weren't doing that because we were there, because the place was full, and we were a very small portion of the whole a number of people. But it occurred to me how their worship is different and yet the same as ours, that they're worshiping God as we worship God, but maybe with a little bit more enthusiasm, which I find very refreshing. Well, back to today. Last week when Pastor Lori and I were working on the message for Sunday, Pastor Lori came to me with a hymnal, which is, some people still call our new hymnal. It actually came out over 30 years ago. But the hymnal that we have, and she said, do you know this Christmas song? And I'll butcher this Spanish, but the title is De Tierra Lejana Venimos. And I go, no, I don't know any Spanish hymns. Well, I know some Spanish hymns, but I only know the English words to them. But I didn't know this one at all, and it's been in the hymnal all along. Well, what it turns out is it is a story kind of like the hymn that we sing, We Three Kings, about the kings who came to visit Jesus, or the Magi is actually a little bit better description, because we don't think they were kings at all, but the wise men that came to visit baby Jesus, and the gifts that they brought and what that meant. And it's a traditional Puerto Rican hymn. That's the reason I'm ties to Puerto Rico, is that this hymn is it something that if you were in Puerto Rico, I'm sure at Christmas time you would have sang this hymn, because it's very popular, one popular enough that it ended up in our hymnal as well. But the English translation of that, De Tierra Lejana Venimos, is from a distant home, and it's talking about the wise men coming from afar. And the significance of that story is as much tied up in the symbolism as it is in the history of the story. The symbolism is that these were people that were not Hebrews. They were not followers of the Jewish faith. And yet they knew something that, something huge had happened because of the star that appeared. And they came to pay homage to the baby Jesus. And so I'd like to sing this song for you, and hope you enjoy it. It definitely has a Caribbean flair to it because it's a Puerto Rican traditional song, but I hope you enjoy From a Distant Home. From a distant home, the Savior we came seeking, using as our guide the star so brightly beaming. Lovely eastern star that tells us of God's morning, heaven's wondrous light, oh never cease thy shining. Glory in the highest to the Son of heaven, and upon the earth be peace and love to all. Glowing gold I bring, the newborn babe so holy, token of his power to reign above in glory. Lovely eastern star that tells us of God's morning, heaven's wondrous light, oh never cease the shining. Glory in the highest to the Son of heaven, and upon the earth be peace and love to all. Frankincense I bring, the child of God's own choosing, token of our prayers to heaven ever rising. Lovely eastern star that tells us of God's morning, heaven's wondrous light, oh never cease thy shining. Glory in the highest to the Son of heaven, and upon the earth be peace and love to all. Bitter myrrh have I to give the infant Jesus, token of the pain that he will bear to save us. Lovely eastern star that tells us of God's morning, heaven's wondrous light, oh never cease thy shining. Glory in the highest to the Son of heaven, and upon the earth be peace and love to all. Lovely eastern star that tells us of God's morning, heaven's wondrous light, oh never cease thy shining. Glory in the highest to the Son of heaven, and upon the earth be peace and love to all. Well, it's my prayer that you realize that God came in the form of Jesus, his son, for the whole world, that Puerto Ricans as well as Americans and people all over the universe celebrate the gift of the Christ child, Emmanuel, God with us. Go in peace and have a glorious day.